Hi everybody, it's John back with another model inbox review. Today I'm doing another companion build, and as you're probably well aware, what you're looking at is a Gloster Gladiator. The companion build that I'm working on this time with this inbox review is the old tool Airfix Gladiator, the Gloster Gladiator Mark 1 from Series 1 from donkey's years ago, and the new tool Gloster Gladiator Mark 1 which was released in 2013. Now, what we're having a look at here is an image which is quite poignant for one of the models that I'm actually looking at, and what we're looking at here is the How Far flight, the Defence of Malta flight of 3 Gladiators, which virtually successfully defended Malta against the entirety of the Aeronautica Reggiane from the Italian Air Force. And these aircraft were fabled to be called Faith, Hope and Charity. And it was really strange that I managed to find this photograph, because here are the 3 aircraft at How Far Airport airbase in Malta in 1940, when the aircraft were based there. They weren't actually Gladiators, they were Sea Gladiators. They were supplied by the Royal Navy during the Fuselage operations early in 1939, late in 1939, 1940, and the aircraft was stationed there when the Italians attacked. We'll start with the usual way and manner that I start my videos with. We'll have a look at the boxing history. First of all, the Series 1 Airfix Gloster Gladiator. One of the things that's quite interesting about the Airfix Gloster Gladiator is that it was actually the second aircraft kit released by Airfix right back in the days of 1956, and this is a Type 1 header. And there are 2 things that are quite poignant about this, well 3 actually, if you include the fact that the colour of the plastic is light blue. In the early days Type 1 kits, your Airfix logo is actually a scroll logo in blue, like this, in blue and white. And the stand that you got was a square-based stand. And here it is in the back, with the canopy for the aircraft sat inside the base of the stand, upside down there. And the plastic itself, when the original kit was released, was actually light blue, as you can see here. The aircraft was just called a Gloster Gladiator. And the other interesting thing about this kit is that it actually has quite a substantial 3-bladed propeller, as you can see here. Which is interesting. I always found that interesting. So that's a 1956 release. There's another thing I actually want to point out, is the fact that the early kits released by Airfix in 1956, well actually in 1955, the first aircraft model that was released was the famous BTK Spitfire, which was released in 1955. And then in 1956 there were 3 other kits released shortly after the Spitfire was released. And the first of these 3 was the Gloster Gladiator, making the Gladiator the second kit released by Airfix. The third and fourth was actually the Messerschmitt ME-109F, which was the forerunner of the 109G6, as the mould for the F was substantially updated to produce a G6 variant of the Messerschmitt. And the 4th aircraft release was actually the Westland Lysander, but there were 2 toolings of the Lysander. I think the second tooling was updated in the late 60s on the Type 3 header, but the Gladiator, it was the second kit released by Airfix, and here it is in the Type 1 bag kit. 1957 saw the second release of the Type 1 bag kit for the Gloster Gladiator. The only major change to this kit here is actually the colour of the plastic. The colour of the plastic went from light blue to silver grey, as you can see here. And it was silver grey for quite a long time before it became grey in the boxing that I've got here. 1957 went through to 1959, when the aircraft was released on a Type 2 header You can always tell the Type 2 headers because they had a yellow band between the white section of the header and either the green, the yellow, the blue or the red side to the Type 2 header band, but there was always a yellow band in the middle, and the logo on the Type 2 headers was usually yellow. You can see the scroll logo here, which is sat here in yellow, and silver grey plastic, once again quite evident there. 1959 also saw a release for a reboxing of the Airfix Gladiator through a company called Plasti Baumodell, and I think this was a German company that actually issued the aircraft in the European market for Airfix, and they marketed the kit under the Plasti label, and the design of the header was actually pretty similar to the Type 1 design, which I always thought was quite interesting. The Gladiator was actually their 10th aircraft in the series that Plasti released in 1959. 1959 went through to 1967, and here you have the famous red stripe Type 3 bag header. Again, you've still got a scroll label logo here for the Airfix 72nd scale logo, but the aircraft was now named the Gladiator Mark 1. And these had little tiny holes here to slip over the sails, the shelving that they had in Woolworths at the time, because Woolworths was the exclusive rights to sell Airfix in the United Kingdom at the time, and they didn't actually come into other model shops until around about the mid-1970s, maybe early 70s. But that's a Type 3 red stripe bag kit. And then in 1973 you had what was called the early Type 4 release blister packs, and these again were released in silver grey plastic, but they changed the style of the stand. As you can see inside that blister pack, the stand is now the usual type that you had in the 70s and 80s for stands for Airfix kits. I quite like this type of packaging because it had a nice little slot in the card where you could slip the kit over the stand that they had for models of this type, the Type Series 1 kits. And this was 1973. The instructions for this would have been on the reverse of the packaging, and there was a flap that folded down over the top, so this would have been like a two-part card, and the flap at the back would have had the paint and decal ID guide for the back there. So that's 1973. 1973 went through to 1976, and here you had another Type 4 box, but this time it was a box instead of a blister pack card kit. All models after 1976 or maybe 75 started to get released in boxes, and Series 1 models found their way into boxes as well. And this was a Type 4D box, I believe, and with the circular logo there, which was introduced in the Type 3 boxes. Sorry, Type 4 boxes, Type 4 boxing. 1976 went through to 1987, and this was when Borden Incorporated had hold of Airfix under the Humbrol marketing board, and these kits were released in boxings of what I call the famous blueprint boxing. If you like, the Palatoy style boxings where the kit was displayed, made up on a blueprint, which usually had absolutely nothing to do with the aircraft or the tank subject, or in some cases cars or even model ships that were laid down on a blueprint and sold made up images on the front of the boxing there. So that's 1987. Then you have the boxing that I've got, which is in 2008. Now this looks like a Humbrol box, and yes, it is a Humbrol box, but it was a tide over from when Humbrol was still owned by McGuinness and Partners, and they were still boxing their kits for Airfix in the old Humbrol style boxings. But these box lids and box packaging were actually taken over by Hornby Productions Limited in 2006, when Airfix was purchased by Hornby, lock, stock and barrel. And this particular type of boxing is actually quite an important boxing, because something happened with the Gladiator kit at this time that was really quite exciting. they changed the variant available from one aircraft, which was this aircraft, the Church Fenton 72 Squadron fighter aircraft, to 4 models available where they incorporated, yes, you've guessed it, faith, hope and charity. And we'll see the paint guys and decals and everything for it when I show you the boxing for this. That's 2008, the first Hornby release of the Gladiator. It was also the last release of the Gladiator Series 1 kit, because in 2013 this kit was released, the new tool model. This was the starter kit variant. They also released it in a standard boxed package without the starter kit in 2013, and they also released another Mark 1 Gladiator, which I'll show you as well in a minute. But these starter kits are quite interesting because the poly cement's not bad, the brushes are actually very, very good, and according to a lot of my subbers, the Hornby acrylic paints aren't as bad as people think they are, so that's quite good. You know, it might be worth trying to use some of these if you've got them. That's 2013. Also in 2013 you had this particular kit that was released alongside the other one in a standard box, and this had the traditional silver Mark 1 Gloster Gladiator livery for the RAF pre-war, and also a foreign services aircraft. Not sure what service this was covered, but it's quite a nice looking camo pattern on that aircraft. It might be quite interesting to build that option. And I think this original boxing was marketed to be sold in the Shuttleworth Collections gift shop, but it was also on general release in the shops as well. 2013 went through to 2013 later year, where the Gladiator was released as a Mark II and also as a Swedish Air Force Gloster J8A. And this kit is actually quite nice as well, because you've got optional parts for skis and this, that and the other, which is quite nice. This particular retooling of the kit, when you see the parts, is actually light years ahead of the original Series 1 release, and you'll see how far Airfix has come with the Gladiator kit over the years to release this brand new tooling in 2013. But the story doesn't stop there, because in 2016 they also released a dogfight double of the Gladiator Mark 1 and the Junkers Ju-87R2, which was a Battle of Britain dogfight double between these two classic aircraft. I have seen this kit in the shops, and it's still quite easily obtainable, but I don't think it's on general release by Airfix at the moment, but you can probably still find a few of these models in the model shops in your local towns. Right, also I do believe that there are rumours, and this is artwork that sort of suggests that it is more than likely true. This is the artwork that is probably going to be on the Gloster Gladiator RAF variant Mark II on general release later in 2019, and I think it would be nice to see this particular kit come on the market. It will have a 2-bladed prop, and it should feature the other canopy that I've got in the box as well, which I'll show you in a minute. But that's the artwork that should accompany the 2019 release Gladiator Mark II. There's a nice view here of a Mark I Gladiator. I think this is part of the Shuttleworth collection based on RAF Duxford, and I think it suggests fantastic reference material for anyone building a Gladiator. Whoops. From the new toolkit, because the new toolkit is very, very good. Right, what I want to do quickly now is just pull the camera up a little bit and then swing the camera around so that you can have a look at the kits in question. And what I want to do is I want to try and see if I can bring it around there like that, so that you can have a look at this kit without having too much of the shadow from the light source behind this camera. But it's not having it, is it? Doesn't want to do it for some reason. Sorry about this. But this stand I've got here, this new stand, is a nightmare. Right, we'll start off with the Series 1 release kit. This is the Series 1 release kit that I've got here. This is the last release of the Series 1 Gladiator. The serial number is prefixed A01002, and it's a nice big box. We'll just open the packaging so we can have a look, see what we've got inside, and what I'll do, I'll just take the stuff out in the order I want to present it to you in. I'll show you that in a minute. And the instructions, I'll have a look at those in a minute. There's a nice little form here for the Airfix Modelers Club. You get these in virtually every Airfix model now. And the interesting thing that I've noticed on here is it carries an annual fee of $14.99, and you receive all this stuff in the post. You know, you get like club models which are limited edition, you get magazines and the Airfix catalogue. This was a 2008 edition pricing for the Airfix Modelers Club, which was quite nice. Now then, instruction leaflet. The instruction leaflet on this kit is A4 size. It's quite a basic model, so be prepared. You've got 10 languages giving the brief history of the aircraft and the stats in lots and lots of different languages there. There's 10 in all. And at the bottom you've got the Hornby logo, which definitely proves that this kit was released by Hornby, even though it's in a Humbrol style boxing, which is quite interesting. You've got some general instructions here on page 2, again in 12 different languages here, and then you've got some assembly icon instructions at the bottom here, which tells you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and ID keys for like completed stages. And the kit is built in 4 different stages, and it's a very basic kit. It will go together very, very quickly. In section 1 you've noticed that the airframe is entirely put together. There is no interior in the Series 1 kit whatsoever. In fact, it's probably worse than that, because the aperture for the cockpit assembly is actually covered by a flat plate, and the pilot's head and neck sticks out from the top of that flat plate. So the airframe goes together in its entirety apart from the upper wing. And in section 2 you've got the one-piece Bristol Mercury M Series 30 engine, which is accompanied by either a 2 or a 3 bladed propeller. As you can see there's an option there, and the reason there's an option there you'll see in a minute when I show you the paint guide. The retainer pin fits at the back there. Section 3, you're putting all of the interplane struts, the engine onto the airframe, the cockpit canopy and the upper wing, and that's all jigged in place and hardened off. And then you've got a nice diagram there showing the angles that all the interplane struts and support struts should be at, which is quite good. Now then, section 4, you're just finishing off basically with the tail wheel, the undercarriage struts, the exhaust pipes and the wheels. So the kit builds up very, very, very quickly. And on the back of this instruction leaflet, you've got a paint and decal ID guide. And that's the first variant that you get in all of the previous releases of the Gladiator in Series 1. This is an aircraft based at RAF Church Fenton, pre-war 1937, from 72 Squadron Royal Air Force. And then you have 3 Sea Gladiators. And yes, you guessed it, they're the Hal Far Malta Defence Flight. This is Faith, Hope and Charity. And the thing that I didn't realise is that Faith, Hope and Charity were actually naval gladiators. They were Sea Gladiators supplied by the Royal Navy. And then they were reinforced as the attrition rates went up by Force H and the Royal Navy. But Faith, Hope and Charity were a fabled 3 Gladiators which virtually between the 3 aircraft defended Malta against the Italian Air Force for virtually the entirety of 1940. And here they are, the markings and everything are in this kit to build any one of those 3 aircraft, which is great. Fantastic. I was not expecting that. You've got a nice set of instructions for the paint and ID of the decal guides and everything. And these are more in-depth images so that you can see where all the transfers go, what colours to paint everything, and it's quite clearly ID'd and exploded quite largely on the instruction leaflets there. And then the second thing that I noticed, which was quite weird, is that the Sea Gladiators are actually painted in 3 colours on the upper surfaces of the fuselage and wings, and the underside is painted black and white. But they're showing that the tailplane and the underside of the upper wing is white and light grey. As you can see, the 168 is definitely a light aircraft grey, and 34 is matte white. Well, those surfaces should be G11, they should be silver, but the upper surfaces are very clearly shown that there's three different colours here. You've got colour matte 31, let me just fold this down so you can hold it properly for you. You've got colour matte 31 here, which is actually slate grey. Then you've got colour matte 29, which is dark earth, which is the dark brown colour. And then you've got matte 123, which is actually a dark green. So you've got three different colours coating the upper surfaces of the Sea Gladiator, but it's only the lower wing which carries the colours of slate grey. The upper wing is just green and brown. And I think that's quite interesting because I wasn't expecting that. But that paint guide is quite clearly defined, it's quite large, the images are quite large and quite easy to follow. And then you've got the decals for this Series 1 kit. And this is something else that surprised me because, yeah, you've got the Church Fenton based 72 Squadron Silver Gladiators markings there. And these have been present in every single release of the Gladiator since it was released in 1956. And then you've got all these other markings, which are for the Halfar Malta Defence Flight. And it looks like every single variant of the kit has its own roundels and fin flashes, which is bizarre because the Sea Gladiators, all the markings are identical. I mean, the register on them is fantastic, and the actual quality of the decals, yeah, they're not cartographed, but I'll tell you what, they're not bad. The decals aren't that raised, and the backing film looks pretty clear. They're pretty good decals. I'm quite pleased with those, and there's rather a lot of spare roundels there, which will come into handy for future projects. The transparency on this kit is here. I'm trying not to get it out, but you should be able to see it through the plastic. It's nothing to write home about. I mean, it's clear. It's relatively defined, and there's no flash on it, but it's not a very accurate canopy. It doesn't appear to be as accurate as the new tool canopy that you get with the new tool kit. Now then, I'll just take the parts out of this model because they're quite interesting. We'll show you the sprue first. This sprue is a bit Flash City, unfortunately. The three bladed prop is there, as you can see. It's quite covered in flash, isn't it? And it'll need quite a bit of cleaning up. And a lot of those interplane struts are covered in flash as well, and they'll need cleaning up too, as is the radial cowling on that Mercury engine there. The engine itself is quite detailed, but, well, I don't know, it's not that bad, is it? It doesn't, you know, it's not too bad. It'll paint up all right. And the wheels, they're okay. The tail wheel's quite nicely moulded there. You can see that quite nicely and defined. That's quite good. So, you know, the parts, they're nothing to write home about, but they're not that bad. It's a two-bladed propeller. This has got quite a lot of flash on it, and it'll need cleaning up, but to be honest with you, I'm not even sure if I'm going to use that propeller. Not sure. We'll have to see. And then we get to the bit of the aircraft kit that is a bit of a joke. The upper wing is pretty much similar to the lower wing, so I'm not going to show you too much about that, other than the fact that you've got some beautiful sinkholes there. Can you see them on the underside of the wing? They're going to need cleaning up, and it is pretty much covered in flash. And then you get the lower wing, which is quite disappointing. The lower wing seems to have quite a few injection mould points on the wing as well, which are going to need cleaning up. There's quite a lot of flash here and there. And the other thing which really disappointed me about this kit is that the ribs are just basically raised lines. The rib features on the wing are raised lines, and it's not even shaped. There's no shape or contour to that whatsoever. And on the underside of the wing, the machine guns are actually moulded into the wing itself, so they're not going to be that convincing, are they? Which is a bit of a shame. So the actual wing, the wing itself is a bit disappointing. And then you get to the fuselage, and this is where it really does get a bit bizarre. What I'll do, I mean, I'll show you the fuselage half, so you can have a look at the fuselage half, but that's basically it. Can you see the flat plate and the pilot's head and neck sticking out of it there? Yeah, not great, is it? And the rudder itself, I mean, again, the ribs on that rudder, they're just lines, they're just raised lines, like panel lines. There's no contours or texture to that rudder whatsoever. But again, this kit is 1956 moulding, and at the time it was probably state of the art. The other thing that's interesting is that there are no locating pins on this fuselage at all. So you're going to have to make sure that it's jigged up properly and everything before you do anything else after you've glued this together. But that's what you get for an interior detail. That's fantastic, isn't it? That's basically the Series 1 kit. What I'll do, I'll just put all these parts back in here because I want to make sure that I don't lose any of them. It's very good to make sure you know where everything is. And which is fair enough, there we go. Parts gone back in, lovely. That's the Series 1 model. So we've had a look at that, and I've tried not to laugh. And then you get to the new toolkit. And the new toolkit is, well, there's no better way of putting it but to say that the new toolkit is absolutely superb. You've got a one-piece instruction leaflet, which again is A4, same size as the last instruction leaflet, and you've got 5 different languages here with some quite more in-depth history on the aircraft and stats and a bit of measurements and stuff there. And then you've got the Hornby tool logo at the bottom there, which was present on the previous instruction leaflet as well. And then the first thing I notice about this kit is that there are an awful lot more parts to this kit, much more in terms of detail, and they've comprehensively covered an awful lot of this kit that just simply wasn't in the old tool. The kit goes together in 25 stages, but there is actually a 26th stage, which is also quite comprehensively explained. Pages 2 and 3 are basically general instructions and safety instructions, and they're in 12 different languages as well in both cases. And then on the bottom of page 2 you've got an assembly icon instruction key, which is quite nice as well. And then you turn the page over and you start to gain a sort of an idea of what this kit entails. And the first thing I noticed is that it takes 7 steps before you put the fuselage halves together. So basically step 1, 2 and 3 are the cockpit interior and pilot, and there's quite a lot going on there. It's got a proper pilot seat, proper joystick, proper pedals. It's got a proper bulkhead and rear bulletproof panel to the back of the pilot seat, and you've even got an optional position access door here as well, but you'll have to cut away the part that's in part A23 and then drill those 2 holes out to be able to put A12, which is the access door, into place in the lowered position. And in section 5 you've got another couple of internal features there which need to go into the kit, and they'll obviously have to be painted up and everything else. But section 6 you've got an explanation of what the cockpit interior should look like when it's in place, which is nice, and then you put the fuselage halves together and away you go, all fun dabby dozy. Section 8 and 9 is to do with the lower wing and the forward upper decking for the fuselage. The forward upper decking, the back section of the forward upper decking also incorporates the instrument panels, and you've got 4 decals to cover for that, which is quite good as well. And then you've got on the lower wing you've got a couple of holes which, if you want to mount this kit on a stand, i.e. the dogfight double, or if you just want to purchase a stand to display your aircraft in flying mode, you have to open those 2 holes up in the lower wing there, and it even gives you the gauge drill you require for the correct size of hole for the pins on the display stand. Right, section 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 are all to do with the engine and the engine cowlings. And again, the first thing I notice about the engine on this kit is that it's quite well detailed and there's quite a lot to it. It's got a proper inlet manifold for the radial Mercury engine. there's a separate part for the Mercury engine, and these two pipes B13, they really are there on the real engine. I've seen them. And then in section 12, the retainer pin for the propeller is actually fixed inside the gearbox for the Mercury radial engine there, and it's all faithfully reproduced. You'll see the parts in a minute. The lower cowling half also has the exhaust pipes, which are attached to that part as well. And the exhaust collector ring there, which is part A28 in section 14, goes into place there. And then in section 15 you put the upper cowling halves into place, and that finishes the engine cowling assembly. And in section 16 and 17 you're basically putting the interplane struts and the upper wing into place. Now what I'll probably do with this kit, because you've got rigid support struts from the fuselage to the upper wing, I'll probably put the wings together in a similar fashion to what I did with the Matchbox Fury that I did last year, where I will glue the wing part B1 into place, and then when it's hardened and gone off properly and it's hardened and set aside to dry, I'll put parts A1 and A2 into place by gluing them into place at the bottom, and then gluing the recesses in the upper wing, and then sliding the interplane struts into place and just popping them in. They should just pop in the same way they did with the Matchbox Fury. Section 18 and 19 is basically the tail empennage and the undercarriage struts. Not much to go over there. And then in section 20 you've got an option of whether you wanted weighted wheels for the aircraft to stand on its undercarriage, or unweighted wheels for the aircraft to be displayed on a display stand in flight mode. So you've got two separate types of tyres and wheels there. That's quite good. Section 21, you're putting the guns in place, and they're separate parts for this kit, so that's quite good as well. And then you've got a little pilot step there that sits on the side of the fuselage underneath. And then in section 22 you've got that beautifully moulded propeller, which you'll see in a minute. It really is a work of art. Section 23 you've got a tiny little starting handle there that goes into place, and then 24 you're just cutting those interplane strut guide X's out of the interplane struts when they're all set aside to dry and everything's gone off. Section 25 you've got two options for the canopy. You can have it in the closed position as C4, or in the open position as C1 and C2. And then that's showing you what the parts look like when they're in place, which is great. And then in section 26, it's not marked 26, but it is marked. It should be marked 26. If you're going to rig this kit, you have a complete rigging guide, which shows you what the kit looks like rigged from the front, from the sides, and all parts, and from above and below. All parts covered. So those guys out there who like rigging biplanes, they've even got it covered for you as well, lads. There we go. That's the instructions. Instructions are quite comprehensive. There's quite a lot going on there, but to be honest with you, they're quite easy to follow. Next we come to the decals, and the decals is something that I was a little bit disappointed with, but to be honest with you, these starter kits, the decals tend to be quite basic, and that's the decal sheet. Yeah, they are made by Cartograph, but there's not a lot there, is there? The decals are superb, mine. The register on the roundels are fantastic. All those little instrument panel decals there at the top they're nicely rendered. The backing film is crystal clear. The decals are hardly raised off the backing paper, which is great, and I think they'll lie onto the kit really nicely, which is great. Then we'll take the parts out of the bag. The first thing I want to show you, like normal, is the transparencies, and the transparencies on this kit are really, really nice. I'm not going to take them out of the bag because I want to try and make sure they stay nice, but basically that's your transparencies. Can you see them there? They're really crystal clear. They're beautifully moulded. They look accurate as hell, and they're just a nice piece of work. And even the embossed panel where the two separate parts of the canopy are moulded one over the other, that's nice and relatively clear as well. And then you've got two windscreens and two canopies, and I think the two different canopies, one is for the Mark 1 and one's for the Mark 2, or maybe one's for the J8A. It probably would be difficult to tell until you bought all of the different variants, or you had one of the different variants that used the other canopy. Now then, we'll go through this sprue first, the one with the wings, because there's things going on with this sprue that I think are really good. First of all, I'm not going to go pedantic through the parts, but I'm going to show you first of all, there's the gearbox for the front of the Mercury engine. That is beautifully moulded. All the parts on this kit are absolutely fantastically moulded. The wings have proper rib contours on the wings. They're actually moulded, not overdone either, but they're moulded beautifully to reenact the ribbing on the aircraft, which is really good. And then in the other corner here, you've got the machine guns that fit on the underside of the underside of the wings. You can see them; they're nicely moulded with the bullet ejectors and the top of the casting there. And then you've got the two separate wheels, which are weighted. They're the ones that are weighted, and they're the ones that aren't weighted. That's quite good as well. And then you've got your little pilot seat there, not much to write home about. But then you've got this lower section to the cowling. And I'm going to try and get you the angle here, because this is really interesting. The cowling, that fits underneath the radial engine. You've got your two exhaust pipes. At the back of the exhaust, they're actually drilled out. Yeah, the exhaust pipes have actually got holes in the end. I've never seen that in a model kit before. It's really, really good. And also the injection marks on this kit are non-existent. They're either in the tree sprue section of the actual sprue itself, or they're on the inside of the fuselage halves, where they're not even going to be seen as interior detail, which is fantastic. The fuselage halves, there they are, beautifully moulded, recessed panel lines, everything absolutely brilliant. And then you've got that absolutely marvellous propeller. That two-bladed propeller is a work of art. It's absolutely accurate as hell. The rear rudder and the tail fins, they're nicely moulded as well, and the texture's perfect for fabric covered ribs and everything. It's all reenacted perfectly, and the tail planes, they're nice too as well. And then you've got this god-awful pilot figure. I'm not a great fan of the new Airfix pilot figures from the new Toolkits, and I know they do look quite good when they're painted up and in situ in the interior of a plane, but they just look like they're sat on the toilet, don't they? He just looks like he's gonna go to the loo. The last thing I want to show you on this sprue is that Mercury engine. Have a look at the detail and the accuracy and the craftsmanship that's gone into the building of that engine. It's absolutely superb. And that's the inlet manifold, and that's the collector ring. It's a work of art. This part here is actually the interior of the aircraft's cockpit floor. That's the bit that you put all the seats and joysticks and all that stuff into, and that's all. It's beautifully moulded. There's absolutely no flash whatsoever on this kit. There's no burrs. There's no abnormalities in the plastic. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a work of art. It's one of Airfix's gems, as I've said before. I've very rarely found a new tool kit from Airfix which is bad. I did have one that I wouldn't recommend above the old tool one, simply because I didn't think it offered that much more than the old tool ME109 G6. But it is still a nice kit. Even the G6 is quite a nice kit. So that's those two models. I'll just put that there so you can see them nicely. And then what I want to do quickly is just go through the gumph of this kit so that I can get the video finished off. Now then, obviously because, obviously because you've got two kits with the comparison build, what I'll do is I'll give the data for the Series 1 old tool first, and then I'll give you the data for the Series 2, I think it's Series 2 new tool kit second. The model in question for this comparison build is the Airfix Gloster Gladiator Mark 1 new tool 1956 rendition, and old tool 1956 rendition and new tool 2013 release. The serial number for the Mark 1 old tool was A01002. It would originally have been A1002. And the serial number for the new toolkit is A55206. Now, there are decals for 4 versions with the Series 1 model. one for K6142 from 72 Squadron Fighter Command, Royal Air Force, Church Fenton, 1937, that's pre-war colours. And then there's also markings for N5520, which is Faith, N5531, which is Hope, and N5519, which is Charity, from the Hal Far fighter flight, which were based in Hal Far in Malta, June 1940, and formed the Defence of Malta flight. The dimensions of the two kits are 4.5 inches long by 5.5 inches span by 1.5 inches high on its undercarriage. And there are 26 parts in the old tool Gladiator, and on one grey plastic sprue and one clear canopy part loose, which comprises 27 parts in total. The new toolkit has 49 parts on two grey plastic sprues and 5 parts on one clear plastic sprue, totaling 54 parts in total. Now there are quite a number of options and costs, and some of these models have star ratings which equate to how the pro builders rate these models compared with the rest of the market for the Gladiator kits. In 1/144th scale, there's a company called Mark I Models who produce the Gladiator in quite a few different styles of boxings. For £15 to £20 with a 1-star rating, you can buy a Gladiator Mark I, a Mark II, a Sea Gladiator, or a Swedish J8. They also produce two, if you like, twin aircraft packs, which retail for about £24 to £26, and these both carry single star ratings as well. The pro builders quite like these. One is of a Gladiator Mark II and a Brewster Buffalo, and the second is of a Gladiator Mark II and a Bristol Beaufighter. Now, in 1/72nd scale, you obviously have the old tool Gladiator Mark I, which retails for anything from £1 to £105. Yes, believe it or not, I've seen it sell for £105 on eBay. And the new tool Airfix Gladiator, the Mark I, Mark II and J8A, which retail for anything between £3 and £15. And this kit carries a 3-star rating. The pro builders absolutely love this kit, and I must admit I have to agree with them. I think it's superb. Airfix also produce this kit as a dogfight double, and I've seen it in the shops, and I believe it's about £25, I believe. But I have seen it on eBay go for as little as £12 and as much as 30. Now, Frog built a Gladiator Mark II, and I have built that kit before, maybe 3-4 years ago maybe, but it's usually available for about £10 to £15, and that actually carries a 1-star rating from the pro builders, so they like the Frog kit as well. Hella produce a Gladiator Mark II, a Mark I, and a J8 for about £3 to £40, and that carries a 2-star rating. The pro builders like that kit too. For £5 to £10, Hobby Boss do an RAF Gladiator, and for £5 to £15, Matchbox do a Gladiator as well in their purple range. Pavla Models do a Gladiator Mark I, a Mark II and a Sea Gladiator for £18 to £25, and that carries a 3-star rating as well. The Pavla kit's very popular with the pro builders. And 2-star ratings go for the sword offerings. One is a single kit pack for a Gladiator or a Sea Gladiator for £18 to £20, and the other is a twin kit pack which covers a Sea Gladiator and an Arado AR-196, and that retails for £20 to £25. Plasti do a reboxing of the old tool Airfix Gladiator for £10 to £15, and Encore do a rebox Hella kit of the Gladiator Mark I or Mark II for £10 to £15. Humbrol build the ex-Hella kit of the Gladiator Mark I or II for £3 to £5, and Model X also reboxed the Hella kit of the Gladiator Mark I or Mark II, and that retailed for £5 to £10. Remus Play Kits did a Gladiator Mark II, which was a reboxed Frog kit for £5 to £50. Yeah, I've seen that sell for £50. And Revell did a reboxing of the Matchbox kit as a Gladiator Mark I for £6 to £10. 1/48th is also a scale you can get the Gladiator in. There's a company called Aeronaut who build a Gladiator Mark I. I've got no pricings available on that. And there's a rather old offering from a company called American Model Craft Company who build a Gladiator. And Amco, their release of this kit was something, I think, in the region of about 1946. So I'm guessing this kit is going to be in excess of 50 quid if you can get one. For £10 to £15, Impact do a Gladiator in 48 scale, and for £12 to £22, MPM did a Gladiator. Merit International build a Gladiator Mark 1 and 2 for £25 to £30, and Rodan did a Gladiator Mark 1, a Mark 2, a J8 and a C Gladiator, retailing for about £9 to £26, and that carried a 2-star rating with the pro builders. They quite liked that. Trumpeter do a Gladiator Mark 2 for £30 to £35, and that has a 3-star rating. They love this kit. Edward did a Gladiator, which is a reboxed Rodan kit, for £20 to £50, and Lifelike Hobby Kits built an Impact reboxed Gladiator for £20 to £22. Limburg built a Gladiator Mark 1 and Mark 2, which is a reboxed Impact kit for £15 to £30, and Pyro also reboxed the Impact kit of the Gladiator for £5 to £30. Now, if you want to go mega size, you can get the Gladiator in 1/32nd scale. ICM built a Gladiator Mark 1 for £45 to £55. ID Models built a vac form Gladiator. I've got no pricings for that, but I would have thought it would probably be between £7 and £10. But sorry, £17 to £20, but maybe a bit more. And also Trigger Models did a Gladiator, which was an ID vac form pack rebox. Again, I've got no pricings for that, but if you really want to push the boat out for a 3-star rating, the pro builders absolutely adore this kit. And I've seen photos of this kit, and certain parts of this model look real. Silverwings do a Gladiator Mark 1, a Mark 2 and a C Gladiator, but it's pretty pricey at £180 to £220. Now then, conclusions. The early tool release Gladiator it's really quite terrible, but it was the second aircraft kit released by Airfix back in 1956, and so in regards to that fact, it didn't really have any competition for a couple of years. The parts are very basic, and even the pilot is built into the fuselage halves. It's not that good a state of affairs. The new toolkit, however, looks to be another one of Airfix's gems. The parts are lovely, with good and comprehensive interior detail, and it's not only way better than the old tool offering from Airfix, but probably better than most of the competition too, certainly in 72nd scale, and it's probably a push for quality and detail against kits in 48 scale, except for maybe the Trumpeter and the Rodan kit. Now then, models worthy of note are the Pavla and New Tool Airfix kits in 72nd scale, the Edouard and Rodan kits in 48 scale, and in 32nd scale that Silverwings kit is an absolute beauty. So that's basically the inbox review finished. I hope this inbox review has been of some use, and I'm sort of looking forward to building these two kits. I think the old Gladiator, although it isn't a very good kit, I think it'll be quite good fun. And I'm still deciding which model. I'm definitely going to build one of the Malta defence flights, but I'm not sure which kit I'm going to use for the Malta defence flights. Whether I'm going to use the old toolkit or the new toolkit. I might use the old toolkit for the Church Fenton markings and the new toolkit for either Faith, Hope and Charity, but we'll see later on down. I might even interchange one of the propellers, I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes anyway. But that's the inbox review finished. If you've got any questions or comments, please pop them in the comments box. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.